in terms of like Jesus, I like to think of him as someone like from the future, you could say, just to paint a different picture. It's like someone who came like from the future to show how the things really work. But he went to such a time period that was so backwards that that would be the only logical conclusion would to be to kill him because he's so far advanced. He's just so far ahead because the world, and this is what I've realized, this is the original sin. The original sin is believing that what you see is reality.
This is my friend Kyle. I've gotten to know him on X. What's your X account?
It's at Kyle Miguel underscore.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. And I really like the stuff he posts. And every time we've talked, it just feels like my mind is blown and I can barely keep up. So I'm gonna try to keep up. But I would like for Kyle just to get into the kind of stuff that he's interested in and what he's learned. And I don't know, his journey and whatever else he'd like to.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's been great having you as a, I can call you my friend. We
Yes.
just met synchronistically. Who knows
Yeah.
how? And
Yeah.
and here we are. So
I know. Amazing. I'm really looking forward to it, man. Every time you get into this stuff, I feel like I learned something new. And actually, it's been helpful to hear it more than once. So I'm excited.
yeah, it's not every day you can have conversations like this, really. So I always appreciate it, and I'm always down to just dive as deep as possible because it's just my thing that I'm into more than anything else. So
Yeah, it's really your passion. Like you have put a ton of time into study. Like how much would you estimate?
thousands, just thousands of hours.
Yeah,
Who
because
knows? Like
I
more than
mean,
10,000 hours.
you were putting in like what, 4 to 5 hours a day sometimes or more.
Sometimes, yeah, more, 8, 10, whatever. Just
Wow.
like devouring it and just going as hard as I possibly can, just trying to understand and then re-listening, repeating this information, finding other teachers who are on the same way of thinking, and then doing the same thing with that, repeating, understanding as much as possible. Because I could feel when I first found it that I didn't understand it, but I knew that there was truth there. So I knew it would just take however long for me to finally get it. Because the point is to get something practical out of it. Because I noticed the suffering of the world and of my family and everybody, and I noticed that people didn't have answers, and people had to kind of rely on external authority, blind faith, and I'm like a logical person. I like answers and I like analyzing. So that's what started me in realizing like, okay, wait a second, there could be some answers out here, like solid answers, and apparently these answers are going to give me some kind of peace. They're going to give me some kind of practical results in my life. So yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. I realized when I was around 18 years old that I never had an original thought. Anything that I had said was just a parroting, a repeating of something that someone else said or something I heard on TV. And it's funny because Walter Russell talks about that, and he said most people are just parrots, which is just something you realize as like being a truth seeker, trying to figure out what's going on. You realize that a lot of people aren't like deep thinkers; they just kind of take what comes, and just repeat it. And then, of course, depending on if you're a simple person, I like to categorize in three areas. It's either like simple, serious, or super serious. So, depending on what kind of person you are, that's going to determine how much pain you're in. So, if you're a simple kind of person, you're not going to experience that much pain from not knowing things from life. If you're a serious person, you're going to feel a serious amount of pain. But if you're super serious, that means you're going to go through a super serious amount of pain. And we call these kinds of people like empaths or sensitive, highly sensitive people. It's highly serious. It's actually highly serious. You take things really seriously, which means when you don't have answers and all you have is questions and all you see in the world is suffering and you love to know what's going on, that's going to cause an extreme amount of pain for you. So, luckily for the super serious person, if you go down the journey of being aware that there is knowledge for you to get, there are answers for your questions, you're going to get some super serious answers as well. And that's like the deep philosophers and all those people, they're just like the pain of the world and that stuff, it just hits them really, really hard. And that pain is what causes us to go find the answers. So the pain that I was in being a parrot was like painful. I couldn't take it. I thought of myself as an individual. I thought of myself as a smart person. And then when you realize you're just a parrot, that's very painful, really, really painful. And of course, the depression that you're in, the anxiety that you have, it's like more intense too. Something small can happen, but it really, really crushes you. And other people say, bro, why are you so sensitive? Well, you know, super serious.
I never thought about it that way, but it's like it's super serious and it's like super sensitive. But in that sensitivity, there's potential to either feel things in a very painful way or in a very pleasurable way.
Yeah, I think everyone has the capability of being super serious, but what happens is this is the reason why people don't automatically go after truth and they kind of just accept what comes because they recognize that if I look at these things, I'm going to find things that I'm not going to like, that's going to cause me pain. So the pain of the knowledge is less than the pain of the ignorance. So they just stay in the ignorance because it's right. That's why they say ignorance is bliss. The less I know, the better. I don't want to know. Don't talk about that. I don't want to know. you know. But for me and for the other type of people who line up with that, it's more painful not knowing because you recognize the implications of ignorance. It's not bliss, it's actually pain. If you don't know not to walk out the building, Jim Rohn, you don't know not to walk off the 10-story building, you're going to experience pain.
So pain is a manifestation of not knowing.
Yeah, pain means you don't know. It means you have a question. Imagine you're working on something and it's like not coming together. It's like painful that you don't have the answer because knowledge is peace. So pain is ignorance. But that's why when people go through existential crisis, it's because they don't have answers. They don't know something, what's causing the pain. They're not looking from a high enough viewpoint, high enough standpoint.
Well, how do you know? And what do you know? Like, so we need this knowledge. What's the pathway to that? Because there's so many types of deception in the world too. Like, there's a type of knowledge that's lies. So how do we get the type of knowledge that we need to say, well, like Jesus was talking about the blind leading the blind, like there is this idea that what we really just need is perception. Like we just need to see clearly. How do you get that?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's actually in the book that I'm writing.
Wait, you're writing a book?
Yeah,
Nice, dude. How close are you to being uh, done?
pretty close. Like I kind of just finished the rough draft, more or less.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
because I ended up getting like a map, which I'm calling the map. And it was a process of what I went through in my life and where it led me, which is basically having all the answers that I needed, but still not having peace. And I'll go back to your question, but what helped me was finding Walter Russell stuff really early because that let me know that there was such a thing as objective truth. There are answers to the questions that I have. I needed to know like if God was real. I needed to know all the different mysterious questions that we have in life. So realizing that those answers were out there, that let me know that there was something for me to shoot for. It's not that his information helped me realize that there's something that you can know for sure. And his life was a perfect example of that because he was a master of all the arts and sciences. And he said that God was his only teacher. So his example really like made me realize like 100% it's possible to know things. So having that as like a guide was helpful for me because I would compare stuff with that. And Jesus is another great example. You know, you compare stuff to what he said to try to make it line up. And it could, if it doesn't make sense, then you throw it out. So it's part of what I write in the book is that to get those answers, you need reasons. And that actually comes from Jim Rohn. He says you can't get the answers until you get the reasons. So you're going to be looking for stuff. Okay, so I'll do like the layout of what the book is. And this is the process from ignorance to enlightenment, or also known as belief in lies to belief in truth. That's the process. And everyone's going through this. So everyone is somewhere on this map because it's one or the other. And that's why it says you can't have two masters, right? So you're either 100% all the time in truth or you're not on there. You're on the spectrum. And the spectrum goes from negative 100 to positive 100. Zero's in the middle. And depending on how good you feel or how bad you feel, that means how much you believe in a lie or how much you believe in the truth. So that's like the spectrum. Everyone's on there, and it's related with the lies and the knowledge. And in order to get those hardcore answers, you need to have enough reasons to get them, to decipher through discernment, to decipher cut through all the lies that you're going to find, all the false teachings that you're going to find.
Yeah, so if I could just stop you there,
Yeah.
you're saying that you need a framework, and you mentioned the works of Walter Russell or Christ. I mean, Christ is such a perfect pattern of the divine when you look at it. I don't think it was about Judaism or Christianity or anything else. It was like that was the perfect, that time period, and what was there was the perfect contrast that was needed for this pattern, for this light. So you're saying that we need to find a pattern, and that would be like the reasons, and then the answers fit that pattern. And if they don't, it's a lie.
Yeah, more or less. Like it's like seeing an example of someone doing something. I like to use the 4 minute mile. You know, Roger Bannister, this example where early 1900s they thought it was impossible to do a mile in under 4 minutes. Human history never happened once. As soon as it happened, within a few weeks, high school kids did it. See, so that example is what allows people to see that something is possible. So that's what these like master teachers are. They're an example for you to see that it is possible. And a master teacher is just someone who is totally either 100% or 99% or 90% aligned with truth. That's why usually teachers, they'll have a lot of things right, but something is wrong, or a lot of, you know what I mean? So Jesus is just the master teacher. He had 100% correct perspective. He had the highest level of sight. And it's funny, I was talking to my dad about this earlier. There's an example in the Bible, this guy called Zacchaeus. I don't know if you know that story,
I
but
love that story.
oh, right. So
Yeah,
you
let's
can't
get
see
into
if
it.
you're in the crowd. If you're too short, you can't see. So you got to go up, and then you can see clearly. That's the idea. And then if you realize that there is answers, then you don't. And like for me, like I like the best. I like to be the best. I like to feel the best. I like to do things perfectly. You know, I like to do it highest potential. Feels good to express myself fully.
Let's back up to the Zacchaeus story, because one
Yeah.
thing that I've always found interesting about that is if you look at the story right before it, it was a rich young ruler. This is in Luke. And he came to Jesus like with everything that he thought he had done perfectly. And Jesus like put him back under the law and told him to sell all his possessions. And then you have
Ah,
Zacchaeus
okay.
up in the tree. He was another rich guy and a thief, and Jesus looked at him and was like, "Hey, today we're gonna eat in the house." And it's just this, I mean, there's grace in that. There's just so much of the divine in that, man. Man, it's a powerful story. Like it's crazy, but that pattern, So that pattern is the truth that is setting you free.
Yeah, and it's usually just the inversion of what the senses are telling you to do, or what the ego is telling you to do, because the ego is based on appearances. And this higher knowledge is based on not appearances, based on something you cannot see with your eyes, based on knowledge. So usually the highest perspective is going to be in direct opposition with the lowest perspective, which is all you have to work with your senses, what you see with your eyes.
So how are you like training yourself or I mean, what are you doing to keep your senses and your ego from running the show?
So what happened to me was I had to go through enough pain not doing it, because I realized that decisions are made at the other side of enough pain. And I love to use, recently I realized this about love, right? Love, doing something nice for somebody. You do it because you know that it's the right thing to do. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to make them feel good. But to look at it from a different perspective, the real reason you do something loving is because you know how much it's going to hurt you if you don't do it. So like my whole teaching is revolves around like the pain side, because of course it's the thing no one wants to look at it. But I was looking at this quote from Rumi. He said, the pain, you don't know, it's going to take you all the way. Let the pain take you all the way. And it's like a mystery unless you can see. The pain is why, the pain of the consequences is why we do things. And even for love.
You said let the pain take you all the way. What does that mean? I mean, if we unpack that, what does that look like to let pain take you all the way? Does it involve like what I've been calling the Joseph principle of seeing the evil in the pain and having the perspective that it was actually worked for your good?
Yeah, it's a similar, if you want to break that down a little bit more, because I have like a cursory of the Joseph story.
Yeah, so he went through all this shit, man. I mean, it was just crazy. Like he was sold into slavery,
Right.
and then he got lucky and ended up in this rich dude's house in full control, and some scandal and other bullshit, and he ends up in prison. So he goes through all this pain, just like up and down, always getting like the short end of the stick. And when he finally got into power and he was second to Pharaoh, so basically like the second place person to
Right.
ruling the world, he said to his brothers that sold him into slavery to begin with, he said, everything that you intended for evil, God worked for good. And I just thought, that's magic. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's almost like a spell. It's such a transformative statement and mindset.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's why I like the Rumi stuff, because I don't even know it that well, but I just see he talks about this a lot, about like the pain being the doorway in.
So how does it become the doorway, though? To go back to my question, because
Yeah.
uh, you know, like with my own trauma, man. I mean, like, first of all, it caused a lot of self-hatred, and second of all, a lot of devastation, and like, so it's hard to see pain as useful. It's hard to
Right.
see it as good. It's hard to see it as a doorway. Sometimes it feels like an obstacle. So how does it become the doorway?
I'll give you what happened to me. Right. So I got all my answers, which means I basically had no questions left. Like question, mysteries, life, universe, what's happening, what's going on, where am I, why am I? All those kinds of questions, I got all those questions answered through my research, super serious research. And then at the end, I was left not having total peace, which is what I thought would happen. I thought I would be granted total peace and after my understanding, but it didn't give it to me. So then that left me with one last question. Why isn't my knowledge saving me? It says to know the truth. And I have no question, so why don't I have peace? So this is to jump ahead in the map story. What I realized was I was still giving my faith to things that I can see. And that's, you could say that's the purpose of pain. It's trying to teach us to stop believing in what you see, ultimately. And that's those stories in the Bible, Job and the other ones like Joseph and stuff. You're going to go through all these things. You're going to give all your power away to what you see. It's going to feel terrible until you can realize that. And this is why in the Enlightenment process, you have enough pain and enough knowledge. You combine those things together, boom, you go all the way. So with enough pain without the knowledge, and with men, right? We're like, number one, I'm gone. It's time to go. So that happens because we get to the point of enough pain where we cannot take any more pain, but we don't have the knowledge. We don't have the answers. So the pain alone, it's the fuel to do the right thing, but without the knowledge of the possible different way of doing things, without the examples, right? You won't know that you can choose something different. So the pain on its own, you'll kill yourself. But the pain with the knowledge, you can become enlightened and go all the way.
What's interesting about that is like it seems like in my own life I oscillate between the two. Go into pain and to get knowledge, and then I get like plunged into pain and then get more knowledge. Um, and so like I had that experience in a shroom trip, man, where I so this dude who I knew in the vision or whatever was like plunging me down into hell where I would wrestle with the demon, and I would have to learn like kind of like its name or whatever, or like understand. So one of them was like self-hatred, another one was I think like pride or something. And like as soon as I saw it clearly, like what it was, then he reached down and pulled me up and was like, did you see? Asked me that a couple times over and over, and then plunged me back, and I kept going back and forth. But dude, my whole life has been like that, and I think I just want to stop oscillating between the two. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
call that the roller coaster, dude. We're all born into that, dude. So it's all good. Everyone's going through it. And like you're also super serious. You like it. You like answers. You want the answers. And you feel more pain than normal. So I like the visualization of imagine you're on a roller coaster. It's fun until it's enough. Imagine you're just on it forever. You don't want to be on a roller coaster forever. Not fun anymore. Get me off of this thing. That's what happened to me. That's what I was saying. I thought the knowledge was going to take me off automatically. I didn't realize I still had one decision left to make. Imagine something bad happens to you, right? At some point, you make the decision to stop letting it affect you, depending on how bad it is. At some point, maybe you never have. Some people, they never get over it, right? If it's bad enough. But if it's something minor, let's say, first seconds, first minutes, upset. After a year, it's gone. Like you forgot, it's gone. You're not holding on to it still. So you get enough pain from it, and then you decide to stop giving your power to it. That's what happens when you let something go. Let it go means I'm not going to give this any more of my power because that has caused me enough pain. That's where decisions are. Enough. That's what enough means. It means decide.
Wow. So what you're saying is that, like bitterness, for example, where say you're angry at a person for a year, but then you get over it. All that really proves is that you could have done that from day one. You could have done it the minute it happened. You could have done it like the nanosecond that conversation happened. You could have done it and you would have been free. Um, I was talking to somebody yesterday about Neville Goddard's teachings on that, and how
Nice,
like
love him.
manifestation really is the story you tell yourself, and like the narrative that you give yourself about every interaction throughout the day. That's kind of the manifestation, because you can walk up to a person and, you know, you tell yourself they're angry and it's going to go horrible. That's exactly how the conversation goes.
Right, like the guy who's unlucky, he's like, man, all this stuff always happens to me. I don't know why. Because the definitions, because just to go like super deep real quick. All right. There's only one mind. That's God's mind. And in this mind is the ability to believe in something, which means to give power to something, which means also to create something, means to give love to something. And that's why the story of Job, it gets left out. But the reason those things happen to him is because, and he says it, my greatest fears came upon me, because you don't realize that you are God and whatever you believe is going to happen. So that's why it's important not to believe a lie is true, or you're going to have a bad time.
Now, what does it mean to believe? Because that's the first thing I think. All right, because I have all kinds of thoughts and shit going through
Awesome
my
question,
head,
man.
and I've been trying to control those, and like I'm working on it. It's like building that muscle. Like I'm just trying to
Yeah, it's
exercise
resistance
this.
training. That's resistance
Yeah,
training
yeah.
right there.
But I mean, what does it mean to really believe? Because it feels like, if I just have a bad thought, is that just all of a sudden going to manifest? That kind of makes me paranoid.
I know. It gets difficult with the law of attraction stuff. You start to have like fears, like, oh man, I don't want my beliefs to start coming true, because that's what's luckily, where we are, we have like a time delay. And it's honestly, it's what your subconscious mind accepts as true. And that's what believe means. It means to accept that something is true. That's all it means.
I like
And that's
that
why when you have your
definition.
fears and they come true, it's because you're giving all of your power to that idea. And then that's what comes true. And there's the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind directs the subconscious mind. And after enough times, which is we call repetition, the subconscious mind will accept the seeds that you deposit into it.
Whoa.
So the same as this is how we learn. This is what learning means. Learning means repeat until,
So
and
do you
then it
think,
becomes automatic.
sorry to interrupt, but do
That's
you
okay, man.
think like the parable of the sower has to do with that? Like, um,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it definitely has alternative meanings to that, but I'm just thinking about, like, how do you keep your conscious mind from sowing shit seeds in your subconscious? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's basically comes from enough pain doing it wrong. And then the examples that we have, like, okay, you're going to keep sowing. They're not all going to sink down, but eventually it will. That you could take it like that.
So is this what Paul was saying by like renewing the mind? It's this process, like you have to, that's what the knowledge is for, is renewing your mind.
That's why it says to meditate on the word of God all day long, because your senses are deceiving you so hard. You're going to be tempted to believe in what you see rather than what you know. So you're going to need examples. You're going to need the highest perspective truths to be coming in, because we're being bombarded. Our senses are being bombarded not only by things, but everything is a lie. Everything is an illusion. So you're being deceived on top of it being a lie, on top of, the parroting of all the stuff that you hear. So it's just bombarding in every sense of the word.
So is that the purpose of this reality, to be a deception so that you can learn the truth? Like, why are we here in this simulation or whatever the heck it is?
There's multiple reasons. So God is love, and love is something that you cannot see. The same as God, it's something that you can't see, but it is real. And that's where the problem happens. And then the expression of love is to give a body to an idea or to give a form to a concept, an eternal concept. If I were to ask you to show me math, right? Everyone knows math is real. They say math is real. Show it to me. You cannot show me math. You can't see it. The only thing you can do is express the eternal concept with symbols or shapes or
So
forms.
the pattern, because I've thought about this. All right, so if you have a higher dimension like a 3D shape, it casts a 2D pattern. Well, what if something from a higher dimension were to try to cast a shadow? I mean, it could look like this 3D reality, and that's why the pattern does come through. Like you can't you can't quite see the divine in the world, but you can see lots and lots of symbols and
Right.
metaphors and all kinds of things that reveal that pattern.
Right. So in order for God to be God, it has to give shapes, it has to give temporary forms to the eternal knowledge that it has, to the one idea that it has. So that's the reason for the physical universe, 3D, 4D, any D. If there's going to be some kind of forms that you can interact with, the reason that they're there is because that's the love idea needs to be fulfilled and love needs to be expressed. And expressing love means giving a shape or giving a body to an eternal concept that you can't see. So for God to be God, things have to exist as such. But then this is the problem. When you see things, you're going to assume that the things that you see are the reality, but they're not. Those are just temporary expressions. And that's why they're not real. Something real cannot change. And you are real. You have power. And when you give your real power to something that is not real, you get nothing in return. And that's why it's so hard.
The shadow is just there for learning. Like literally, that's all it's there for. Um, and I just like the idea of viewing it that way because it draws a real clear line in the sand of, okay, this is the shadow. Like it's really not real. Like it's really just here to help you see, like Jesus was saying, perceive the truth, like what's on
Right.
the other
Why do
side.
we put people in simulations? We put them in a simulation so they can learn something. So you could say that that's the purpose of this simulation because it's self-similar, self-repeating mechanism. So whatever we can do, that's what God is doing. They're just like smaller versions of it, you could say. And I like the shadow idea because a shadow is not real. It just appears as if there's something there, but it's really nothing is there. It's just a shadow. It's an absence of light. So when you give your faith as an example, we have the 3D projecting a 2D shadow. You could say from 4D, it's projecting a 3D shadow that seems real, but it's not. And that's the key that all the mystics are trying to get us to understand. They're trying to say, listen, if you keep putting your power in what you see, you're not going to be able to have a good time. You're going to be a slave to what you see. You're going to be a slave to your thoughts. You're going to be a slave to other people. All the full spectrum of misery that you can imagine. The reason that happens is because of you being deceived. You believe a lie is true.
So do you think, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but
Sure.
so is that why Jesus would have had to, I don't know, like submit to crucifixion? What's so bizarre about Jesus is that he was arguably the nicest guy on earth. Like, I mean, as far as, well, let me just back up and say his reputation and the time period that he lived in is just amazing. Like, I don't know of anybody from that time period that had his level of enlightenment. Um, so the fact that this guy, who should have been loved more than anything, was crucified is sci-fi level bizarre, man. I mean, the only thing that makes it not bizarre is the fact that we've heard it a million times. Did he have to allow that? in order for it to happen? Because when you're vibrating and manifesting at that level, it seems like it would never happen unless you allow it. I think I'm just asking, like, there's this Christian idea of, okay, Jesus suffered, so I need to also suffer. Is that true or false?
Yeah, there's like endless misinterpretations, endless. But in terms of like Jesus, I like to think of him as someone like from the future, you could say, just to paint a different picture. It's like someone who came like from the future to show how the things really work. But he went to such a time period that was so backwards that that would be the only logical conclusion would to be to kill him because he's so far advanced. He's just so far ahead because the world, and this is what I've realized, this is the original sin. The original sin is believing that what you see is reality because that's the default. You only have your eyes to work with. So you're going to be automatically deceived into believing that what you see is real. And Jesus is saying, hey, listen, there's another reality. In fact, what you see is not reality. Stop believing in that totally. If you can do that, you'll get full 100%.
So does that imply that the knowledge of good and evil is really, if you were to view that metaphorically, it was consciousness waking up enough to not be an animal, but to now ask this question of, um, like, what is reality? And, if you think about the knowledge of good and evil, um, it is kind of the tools we use to trust in this three-dimensional realm. Oh, that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. Um, but with the story of Joseph, he's calling evil good. And there's this weird duality behind it. And so I'm wondering if at the higher dimension, there is no good or evil, there's no such thing, because good and evil itself is part of the shadow.
Yeah, Joseph Murphy talks about this, and he says that in the Bible, God says, I create good and I create evil. Go ahead and try to deal with that.
It does say that. That's a
Right?
passage that not
I
many
say,
people know about. Yep.
I say, I'll worry about that later. It's because it's a simulation and everything in here is good. That's the idea. And that's why God said he looked at everything and said, wait a second, let me see. Yeah, this is good.
Wow.
And then so we're saying, no, this is no good. I mean, come on. God said it's good, but you're saying it's no good. Is God wrong or are you wrong? Simulation, everything that happens in the simulation is for learning purposes. So it's all good. From the highest perspective, everything is good. And that's why it also says in the Bible that there is no good and evil. That's the theme, that there really is no such thing. It just seems as if. And really there is no such thing. Evil is just actions based off of ignorance. And ignorance is a belief that a lie is true. And so God would have had to not give us free will. But that doesn't make sense. That wouldn't be love. That wouldn't be giving love. So it knows that giving free will means for a while, you're not going to know what is objectively true. You're going to make tons of mistakes for thousands of years until you actually figure it out. But it's not going to take that from us because that would make it like fascist, That would make it like a dictator.
That's exciting. This stuff is exciting. I mean, when you think about it
Big time.
as and you kind of see the strategy that the divine was using all along to provide free will in such a way that we would also choose what we are, which is divine, which is uh, beings that love the fruits of the spirit. That huge list: love, joy, peace, patience, all of that.
Right. That's why I love the Walter Russell stuff in the Divine Iliad, where he's like channeling God directly. He basically says in there that all men come to me in due time, but theirs is the agony of awaiting that day. So it's inevitable for everybody. At some point, you're going to figure it out because we also live like infinite lifetimes. Because you're not your body, and that's the original sin. You look in the mirror and you think that that is you. It's not you. And you look at reality and you think that that is reality. That is not reality. It just appears as if it is, and that's where all the problems come in. And that's why you get a guy like Jesus saying, "Listen, reality is something that you cannot see." And they say, just kill him. Can't take that. Not ready for that.
So a lot of this is an identity issue.
Yeah. Understanding the true identity,
Of yourself and who you really are.
who you actually are in reality, not in the fantasy, which is what you see. So you're identified with a fantasy. You believe a lie is true.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is it's like one of the big works of Jesus Christ and that whole thing that happened was this revelation of grace that broke into the world. And it's like that is so important because as long as you identify with all these parts of yourself that you hate, you can never let that go enough to know who you truly are.
Yeah, and I was talking to my dad the other day, and so make all these connections all the time. I'm always working on this. Try to make it easy and simple. So I realized that knowledge is peace, right? If you know, that means you're at peace. And then so knowledge is also understanding, and understanding is love, and love is forgiveness. It's all the same thing. Different words describing the same thing.
Wow. Whoa, dude, you're blowing my mind, man.
Dude, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
so yeah, because I've always seen them as very distinct, but what you're saying is like they're all like different facets on the same diamond, or there's like this web. Man, that's powerful because it gets into this idea that the divine is all of that, even though you can parse it out. It's all the same energy. It's just one energy.
Yeah, it's an awesome way to see it. It is one. It is one thing, and there is only one God, and there is no devil. Those are just illusions based on the senses. And there can only be one, or else there would be conflict. So there can only really be one.
Wow. Yeah, because there can only, I was thinking that the other day, like there can really only be one thing that's eternal, and that would have to be life. Um, you know, hell is a whole tangent. we, we should just do a whole separate podcast on that, but just this, yeah, there's such a strong duality presented in Christianity as like literally true when I think it's really more of a metaphor to teach you the pain side of things. I mean, it's all is a big metaphor for exact. In fact, the more that I look at this reality, the more I think, okay, this is hell. And transcending it is literally just seeing it different.
Yeah, because it also says that heaven is within you, but it's somewhere you go, or is it within you? It could be both. But I think that that idea that it's like a state of mind is 100% true. And it's basically telling you that if you believe a lie is true, you're going to burn and suffer. You're going to want to freaking kill yourself. It's the results of believing a lie is true. Imagine you're trying to build a house and you are under the impression that 2 plus 2 equals 5. And you're out there build and you see houses like I want to do that. So you start building, but you don't know 2 plus 2 is 4. You think 2 plus 2 is 5. So you're working and you're building and it's not working. You're going to be frustrated, extremely frustrated, because you can't build something of value while you believe a lie is true. Only until you have enough pain from doing that. I told my dad a good example. A little kid in the sand trying to build a sandcastle, but it's dry sand. And he tries to build it up and it just falls apart. Until he's had enough and he's like, this is not working. I need to do something else. I need to experiment, or I need to have some advice. Someone tell me the way that this actually works. And once he gets the sand wet, now he can make a castle. So once you accept the truth, right, that's called accepting the truth of objective reality. You have to accept that 2 plus 2 is 4. Now you can build something of value. But until you do that, you will not be able to. You just won't be able to. So Jesus and these stories are here to tell us there is objective reality. You're either aligned with it or you're not. If you're not aligned with it, you're going to have a really bad time.
And so this is what it means: the truth will make you free.
Right. And it says to know the truth, and that will make you free, like knowing the truth. And knowing is beyond belief.
So how do you get off of the roller coaster?
Oh yeah, dude. I thought you would never ask.
That's my big question. Like, I'm tired of the cycle.
So we can look at it. What is the roller coaster? The roller coaster is I get something, I feel good. I lose something, I feel bad. That's the roller coaster. And Krishnamurti talked about freedom from the world. That's another way to call enlightenment, freedom from the world, inner peace. The Bible calls it the peace that passes understanding. So, the way to do it, the way it happens, I should say, is that you get to the point of enough pain of being on there, combined with enough knowledge that you can get off. That's the part of the mystery. Most people, they just get into enough pain, they don't have the knowledge, they cannot take it, and they leave. So you have to combine the pain with the knowledge, and that can get you off while you stay here without leaving. You can just get off, but stay here. So that has to be recognized. You have to basically be in enough pain. Decisions are located on the other side of enough pain. When I'm sitting like this and I move like this, because I had enough of this, so now I move here. And then when I had enough, now I move. And this is controlling all the animals, all the people. All decisions are based on enough pain. It's a cool way to look at love. It's like an inverted way to look at love and why we do things. It's because you had enough of what you were just doing. So to get off the roller coaster, you have to be sick and tired of being on there. And that takes humility because you have to recognize that you are on there and you don't have the answer because that's what's causing your pain. Because knowledge is peace. And if you know God, you know peace, right? So if you don't have peace, you don't know God, you don't have love, you don't have understanding. You don't have forgiveness. You didn't forgive yourself, you didn't forgive the world, all that stuff.
Oh, interesting. So you're using peace as almost like a meter to measure and see, is this God, is this not
Exactly,
God?
dude.
Wow. That's mind
And you
blowing.
can check within yourself if I don't have peace, that means I still have a question. Because imagine imagine you're working on a puzzle and it's scattered and it's not complete. Frustrating. You want it to be done. I want to be able to see what I'm working with here. And that's why the last piece in the puzzle, right? That's the one that's just the best. Like, oh my God, finally done.
Yeah,
Now
my
I can
daughter
see.
was fighting me over the last piece the other day.
Wow. Unbelievable. She said, no, let me get that. I want that.
Yeah.
I want that joy and that peace of knowledge, understanding, not have any more questions. That means no more questions. That's what peace means.
All right, so there's this idea in my head as soon as you say that, no more questions. Like, how can you have no more questions? Because wouldn't you have to know everything?
Right. And then it's of relevance. I don't need to know what's happening with the penguins in Antarctica, right? I don't need to know that. I'm sure they're doing something that
Oh,
I don't know about,
good
but that's not
answer.
relevant for me. Yeah, nice.
Wow. Okay. Um,
Relevant means practical implications too, like something practical, you know? How is this going to how is this going to work for me? Help me become better, help me be a better person and all that stuff.
okay. So, it would be like knowing that love is the way, for example. Stuff like that.
Right? It depends on the person, right? Some people with the simple, the serious, and the super serious. If you're super serious, you're probably going to have more questions than a simple person. And they can just have like blind faith. They don't need all the answers to all those questions that you need. So it depends on the person. It really does. But at the same time, the principle is still there of whatever questions you do have, you're going to need answers to those questions in order to have the peace that you're looking for. Because that's all we're really looking for is for peace. That's why we do things.
Wow. Shoot. I'm trying to think of where to start there because so all decisions mean that you've had enough of one thing and so you go for another.
I see it all the time. Everyone says I had enough and they stop, right? Like I couldn't take it anymore. I had enough.
Okay, so a bad decision is this idea that you haven't had enough pain. You may not see it that way, but that's really what it is. Like, you haven't had enough pain to not choose this.
Right. And the irony is people don't realize that the pain is what's going to take you all the way. But the issue is pain hurts. So I don't want to look at that because that's going to hurt. I don't want to do that.
Whoa, so the
And then that's the
pain,
irony. So you hide away from all the things that's going to set you free.
yeah, the pain literally is good. It's not just that you see it as good or like think that God will it's literally good in the sense of it becomes this doorway. Like it's always it is there as a guide to drive you back into.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to convince my dad that there is no such thing as bad. There is no such thing. That's a delusion. There's only good. Imagine you're driving and you get the light on the car. That's good. Now you know something is wrong. But if you ignore the pain, if you ignore the signals, if you ignore the signs, that's going to make it worse. And then people get to 40, 50 and they're like, I can't take this. I am literally gone. Because there's just too much stuff that they didn't look at and they can't look at it because it's going to hurt even more than the pain that they're already in. And they don't have answers to give them the solution to those questions that they have. And they think it's too late for them to even start finding them.
Well, it's hard to find answers, man. Whew,
Yeah.
man, like, and ever since my Christian worldview got shattered, like the fundamentalist version of it, I've had a hard time having confidence because it's like, wow, I believed in a lot of things for a long time that did me a lot of harm. And so I find that I'm like gun shy to really grab onto something, even if I know it's the truth, like love is the way. Why is that?
It's like being in a relationship and you got destroyed. It's like you're going to hesitate to do it again because of the pain. But it's also because we go one thing at a time. Remember, we go one thing at a time, something bad happens. Okay, after enough time, enough has passed. You're going to say, okay, I'm not going to give my power to that anymore. So I'm going to stop believing a lie is true. I'm going to stop believing that my self-worth is based on this thing that happened. And we go one thing at a time. And then the full-blown enlightenment is when you do it for the whole entire thing. I'm just never going to believe in anything I see ever again. Believe in meaning give power to.
Man, that's
Because that's what
profound.
the Russell stuff is so great, because there's the invisible world and then there's the visible world. One is real, one is not real. One is a cause, one is an effect. So we do things one at a time. We give our power to stuff and then we take it back.
So how are we giving our power to stuff?
You give your power to things when you accept that what you see is true. That's when you believe in. When you believe in, that means giving your power to. That's why your greatest fears will come upon you, because that is all you're putting all of your energy into. That you are accepting that that is true, and you don't realize that you are God and you have the ability to create reality. So when you do that, now you're going to have something that you don't prefer because you don't realize the setup.
Okay, well, like sometimes I feel like I can't control my thoughts. Like, case in point, if I don't have enough sleep. So it feels like my brain is constantly running to this bullshit stuff that I don't want. I know it's bad for me, but I have a hard time keeping that script from rolling around in my head. What the fuck is that? And like, how do I deal with that? And what does it mean? Is there a way to like purge that shit out and have pure thoughts most of the time?
Yeah, so those thoughts, that's your subconscious programming. When you're alone with yourself and you get certain feelings, you get certain thoughts, that's usually your subconscious programming, like revealing itself to you.
Well, mine seems
Like,
kind of
yeah,
fucked, man. I've been having to
dude. No, dude. I've been through it so bad, dude. I have no idea. I had enough, dude.
Yeah, so Like,
to the point where you can even have negative thoughts and you just don't believe in them at all. So you can even
okay,
still have the thoughts. They don't even have to go away.
okay,
Because those are just your, because there's you and there's your body. There's you and your ego. And your ego is calculating based off of what it sees. So you can just recognize that if it's something that's a calculation, machinations based off of your senses, that's just ego stuff anyway. So you can let it
hmm.
have full reign. You can even like silently judge people in your mind. Doesn't matter. You just don't give any power to that stuff. You
So
just let
that's
it
the
happen.
last piece of the puzzle, is to really see. Like
Even you could be
you
making
put that
mistakes and
you,
you
you
do
put
this
that
wrong and you do
piece
that wrong.
in. Yeah, yeah, and maybe you don't even have to have every piece. You just have to have enough pieces so you can see, okay, this is the ego. This is the thing that I can't give my power to through belief. Like, this three-dimensional world, I cannot give my power to that. But so that's how you're making this decision, where it's a very clear line in the sand. So you're not going back and forth.
You're never going to kill somebody, bro, no matter what. Unless, of course, right? Something you're being, even if you're being attacked and someone's trying to kill you, you probably won't try to kill them back. You'll probably just like try to stop them as much as you can, you know, so they don't kill you. But the reason you're not going to just kill someone, and the reason most people don't just go kill somebody, is because of the pain that decision would bring to them. So see, pain, I'm not doing it. Enough pain, I'm not doing it. Enough knowledge, if I do it, right? So enough pain, enough knowledge, you can make one hardcore decision to just literally never ever do something. We have that
Wow.
power.
And it's probably also an increase in sensitivity. And this is why it seems like as you're awakening, you become more sensitive to energy. But it's like, whereas you were numb to things that could cause you pain, as you become more sensitive to the light, it's a lot like a plant, like you just start growing in that direction. Um, because the things yeah, like even tearing a person down, like just bashing a coworker or something, it becomes non-enjoyable as you become sensitive to that energy. But when you're numb to it, it's hard to even feel.
Yeah, and that's just being like totally unconscious, people call it, you know? Just not, there's no one home. You're just doing things based on programming and based on the pain, but with no knowledge. So as you get more answers, as you get knowledge, it makes it clear, it makes it obvious what to do.
Wow, that's interesting. And I guess we'll end with this, but yeah, it makes me think about Jesus saying that they were like whitewashed sepulchres, meaning that like there is no one home, there's no one down there. It's just dead inside.
To put a cap on that pain thing, instead of doing one thing at a time, which is what we do, something happens, say, okay, enough. I'm not giving my power to this anymore because I'm in so much pain. If I go any more in this pain, I'm liable to freaking who knows what. I don't want to do that. I don't want to feel this way. Enough. And you make the decision to stop giving your power to the thing. So if you can do it one at a time, why not just do it for the whole setup? The only reason you can't do it for the whole setup is because you don't see the setup clearly. You assume that you have to give your power to things because that's what everyone else is doing.
Wow. Man, Kyle.
Yeah, man.
Whew.
Let's have another one anytime, dude.
that that was mind blowing. Yeah, it's like it takes a lot of focus too. Like sometimes I feel like I can't keep track of my thoughts because a lot of what you're saying
Yeah,
here
as we talk
is,
more, it'll become easier, you
yeah,
know.
well,
It's a big subject.
every time I hear it, like I'm getting a bit more, but it's really powerful stuff, man. I really appreciate it because I think life and death is literally up here. Like this is your interface with the world. And if you can set set the stage right, you're always gonna have a good life. And I've been working hard on that, but had a lot of crash and burn, fall off the roller coaster, like slam into the ground, have to do it over again, type situations.
Oh, yeah, same,
But
man.
I love the simple, like really straightforward, powerful techniques, I guess you would call them, that you're giving to get off that roller coaster. Man, dude, this was great. We're gonna do
Yeah,
it
thank you,
again,
man.
and
Absolutely, bro.
I always look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Same, dude. We'll talk soon, dude.
See
Thank you
you,
so
man.
much.